Good evening and welcome to the EKU Alumni Spotlight Series. I'm Dan McBride, Associate Vice President for Alumni Engagement at EKU. And we have another great show lined up for you tonight, something I'm very excited and have been waiting for the last couple of weeks. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment, but I want to tell you first about some things we've got coming up in the next couple of weeks. First up, next week, we have another edition of The Colonel's Kitchen. That will be next Wednesday night at 8 p.m. It'll be live on Facebook Live. And we're going to do a special St. Patrick's Day edition of the Colonel's Kitchen. So you'll want to be sure to tune in and join us for that next Wednesday. Then coming up on March 23rd, we will have our next Alumni Spotlight Series. Be watching for details coming up on that program, 7 o'clock on March 23rd. And then later this month, on March 29th, it's another, back by popular demand, another edition of Alumni Trivia. That will be on March 29th right here on some of these same channels. Again, be watching the EKU Alumni page and our social media for more information on those upcoming events. But tonight, it's Alumni Spotlight Series, and I'm excited about this one. You always see the officials on NFL games, and you wonder, who are these guys? Usually you're yelling at them, but you wonder, who are these guys? Where do they come from? Well, tonight you're going to meet a real live NFL official. He's also a two-time EKU alum, and we are very excited tonight to welcome to the show Tony Josselyn. Tony, welcome to the Alumni Spotlight Series.
Thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate it. I'm very humbled that you asked, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity. But can we get back to that Colonel's Kitchen thing? I've got a little segue idea. You could do like for the Colonel's Kitchen. After that, you could do like a drinks with Dan. You could do like a pairing. Like, now, drinks with Dan is not very professional. How about culinary pairings with Dan?
We have. It's funny you say that, because we have talked about that. We have got some folks on campus who are big wine connoisseurs, and of course, Kentucky is known for its bourbon, and so we have talked about possibly adding an element like that to the show. Maybe even doing a whole separate show. So we're on the same wavelength. That's good. Tony, I was kidding you earlier because I said your family, and you are the poster family for EKU alumni, because you are a two-time graduate. I believe your wife, Dawn, is a two-time graduate, and you guys met here. And then your kids, I mean, it's a long line of colonels in your family.
It truly is, Dan. So, yes, my oldest daughter, Samantha, she went to EKU. She graduated in 2019. She's at the Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine in Pikeville. Caitlin is there right now. She graduates May the 8th, I believe, in Roy Kidd Stadium. And then Connor, my son, he's a senior at Dixie Heights High School. And when we asked him where he wanted to go to college, he said, well, I want to go to EKU. And we said, well, why is that, buddy? He said, well, that's where my family goes.
Great answer.
A great answer, buddy. So yeah, you would think that your kids, they would maybe want to go in different, take a different path, different direction towards college. But EKU has sold itself. So we've said nothing. We've taken a back seat, and we've simply, when they've asked, we've said, yes, EKU did great things for us, but you know what? This is your path. You make that decision. So there's Sam Josselyn.
Sam is tuned in tonight.
Sam.
So
there's Brian Barrett. Oh my gosh.
Brian Barrett.
Wow.
We're bringing all the old legs out tonight, aren't we?
Oh yeah, it's great.
So you're in Northern Kentucky, right? You are from Northern Kentucky, and you're still in that area, right?
Actually, Dan, I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. So,
okay.
Yeah, so EKU checked all the boxes for me. I went there really for educational pursuits. They had a great program in criminal justice, and it just, like I said, it checked all the boxes. It was a great school. My brother was going there at the time. I already developed some friends, so it was just a natural path for me. So, and then when I met Dawn, so Dawn is from Edgewood, Kentucky. Okay. So I met Dawn at EKU, and lo and behold, we're in Northern Kentucky now. So yeah, just kind of fell into place.
I should have known it was her and not you that decided where you guys were going to end up. Now, you were a police studies major and then criminal justice masters. Did you know when you came to Eastern that that's what you wanted to do, that that's the field you wanted to get into?
Yes, sir. So, Dan, I always wanted to be an FBI agent. That was my true dream. And then when I was in graduate school at EKU, I came across an internship with the United States Probation Office in Lexington at the time. And, I did the internship, fell in love with it. But they didn't have any opportunities when I graduated from graduate school. So I applied for the Kentucky State Police, and I had the opportunity to become a trooper for a couple of years. And then eventually the United States Probation Office opened up a spot, and I was fortunate enough to fill a position there. But it's in Covington, Kentucky.
Yeah. Now, when you were a trooper for 2 years, where were you located then?
We were very fortunate to pick the post. It was Gallatin County. So I say fortunate. It was, close enough to Northern Kentucky. Nothing was available in Dry Ridge. So we moved to Gallatin County. We were there for a little while. And then, like I said, the United States Probation Office opened up, and we quickly latched onto that. And I've been there, Dan, for 25 years.
Wow. It's hard to believe.
I know.
Yeah. You must have started when you were 16, it seems like. And that's the one thing that I think some people don't realize is all of the guys, and I think there's maybe 120 NFL officials.
Right there, 119, and girl. 119. 2 girls now. We just hired another female official.
I saw that, and I want to talk about that in a few minutes. But all of you have jobs. I mean, obviously, officiating is not your full-time job.
That's correct. And a lot of guys, Dan, a lot of them still maintain, secondary employment. We have a lot of professional officials. We have everything from attorneys to insurance salesmen. We've had dentists. My coordinator now, Walt Anderson, he was a dentist for I don't know how many years. So we have a lot of people that still maintain that secondary employment. And the reason being, I could break my leg tomorrow. I could have a health-related issue. I could have a couple bad seasons in a row. And, they could pull the trigger and say, you know what, Tony Josselyn, thanks for your service to the NFL, but you're going to go ahead and retire. So, and you know what, that's why you have to leave that in the back of your head.
All right, let me ask you this question, because this is the thing. I mean, did you officiate intramural games at EKU, or how does one get into officiating? Where did it all start for you?
So good question, Dan. Daryl Crosswade, who's also actually an EKU alum, and my wife's uncle, we were on vacation together back in 1998. And he had started officiating the year before, and we were sitting poolside, and he had his rule book out. And I said, "What are you doing, D?" And he said, "I'm reading the officiating football rules, and I really enjoy it. And they're in need of some good officials. So why don't you come on out?" So I looked at my wife and I said, "What are your thoughts?" And she said, "Well, you know what? We've got our 2 girls. Well, one was still on the way. We didn't have a son at that time." And she said, "Hey, go for it." So at that point in time, Dan, picked up the rule book, took a test, and I went out. And my first year, basically you're doing Pee-wee, JV, freshman. And I was fortunate enough to work 1 or 2 varsity high school football games. So then things just progressed, Dan. And in my fifth year, I started working small collegiate football. So Mid-South, NAIA. And then as things progressed from there, in 2007 when the Sun Belt Conference had an opportunity for me. So, and let me tell you a little story, Dan. So, right, the year that Sun Belt made contact with me, Dawn and I, we sat down with the family, because whenever we make major decisions, we always do it together collectively as a family. And at that point in time, I was working JV. So this was the week schedule. Tuesday night, usually a high school meeting with the Northern Kentucky Officiating Association. Thursday nights consisted of freshman football games or JV football games. Friday night, of course, high school varsity. Saturday morning, I would be up around 4 or 5 a.m. because I would have to go work a game in the Mid-South. Yeah. And then come back, and then Sunday sometimes work Pee-wee games. So it was quite the schedule. It was a lot of football. And like I said, in 2007, we had sat down and we made the decision, are we going to continue to do this? And I was scratching my head. I was making a lot of sacrifices. Didn't know if I wanted to continue. I had a passion for the game. I had a passion for officiating, but it was a lot, Dan. It was a lot to ask of my family, and they continued to support me. So I said, you know what, this is it. Let's just give it up. And like within a week's time, I had a phone call from Don Lucas, and they were needing 2 officials to go officiate in the Sun Belt Conference. And the reason they needed 2 officials that year is because Western Kentucky University became a part of the Sun Belt Conference, and they needed officials from the state of Kentucky. So I was fortunate enough to work a scrimmage. Mr. Lucas, appreciated the way I worked, so he made that job opportunity for me. And then I was there in the Sun Belt for 3 years. And then, we just kept climbing. In 2010, Dan had the opportunity to go work in the Southeastern Conference. And it was just like a dream come true. It was phenomenal. So, growing up, watching the University of Tennessee, pretty much being forced to do that, I'll never forget the first time I worked a UT football game, Dan. So I've got a story for you. So I remember coming out on the concourse, and I was leading the team. They were behind me, and I felt something brush up against my leg. And I looked down, and it was Smokey the dog. And I was like, oh! It was so surreal.
You're there now. Yeah.
It was just like, it was so awesome. So, but anyway, back to the progression. In 5 years into, let me tell you, this is how long it takes to get into the NFL, Dan. 5 years into high school officiating, I was first approached by an NFL scout who was at a local football game at the Boone County High School. He said, hey, like the way you work, you check all these boxes, blah, blah, blah. Have you ever considered the NFL? And I'm like, well, no. It was because I never considered the NFL, Dan, never really thought about it. And he said, well, if you're interested, I'd like for you to fill out this application. Now, Dan, mind you, that would have been in 2003. Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Yes. So 2000 and probably 15, I was placed on the NFL's officiating development program roster. Got to work a couple games. They sent me to a couple training camps. And then lo and behold, 2018, the doors opened up and Al Riveron contacted me, and I became a part of the Shield.
It's amazing. And I guess I always knew this, but the progression is the same. I mean, you start at the smaller games and you just work your way up, and it progressively gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I guess now there's nowhere else to go, though. You're kind of at the limit. Once you hit the NFL, there's nowhere else to go.
There's nowhere else to go. And you know what? Dawn and I, we tell Sam, Katie, and Connor, look, if you're going to dream big, listen to God, and just listen to those little God whispers. But if you're going to dream big and work hard, and then go for it. And that's what we do. We have a little motto around the house. We call it loud and proud. If you're going to do something, or if you've got an upcoming challenge or an interview or what have you, we'll say, hey, loud and proud. That's what we do. That's how we attack things. That's how we roll.
Now, you mentioned you're a back judge now in the NFL, but I'm assuming as you've gone through the ranks, you've done a little bit of everything. I
have. Correct. Yes, sir. And the good thing about working all the different positions, Dan, is that it gives you an appreciation, and it gives you a different perspective of on-field situations that you can relate to from my present position. I know what the referee needs. I know what the head linesman or the down judge needs. I know what the umpire needs. I know, although I've not worked umpire too often, but I still know his perspectives. I still know the mechanics. So I can help out when there's a play situation where he or she may need assistance. I can give a different angle. I can give a different perspective. So, and it's because I've worked all those positions in the past, hopefully I think it benefits the rest of the crew.
But once you're in the NFL as a back judge, are you now a back judge forever, or do you have the opportunity to move to other positions?
So my position as a back judge, first off, I love that position because I'm in the middle of the field and I can work to make my angles. I can work to see different perspectives. Whereas if you're on the sideline, two things, you have to deal with the coaches.
Yeah.
And you're more restricted to your position and your ability to make angles, your ability to see plays. So the back judge position, it's something that I've just kind of progressed toward. And it's something that there's a man by the name of Rogers Redding who I was previously working on the line, and he said, you know what, I think we'd like to move you to back judge. Or actually, he recommended to my Sunbelt coordinator to move me to back judge, and I've been there ever since. And quite frankly, I would rather not go toward a different position. But if the NFL calls me one day and says, hey, Tony, we'd like for you to work as a down judge, I would say, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. And that's it. Because I just appreciate the opportunity. That's all.
Yeah. Now, what about referees? Are the referees back judges who eventually become referees, or have they pretty much been referees all the way through?
So that's a good question. You know what? A lot of the referees, I'm going to tell you, at least half of the referees probably in the NFL have previously worked the back judge position. It's been known to be a natural stepping stone, at least with the NCAA. It's been a natural stepping stone, back judge, then onward to referee. So, but the referees, I've got a tough job, but Dan, let me tell you something. They have an extremely tough job. They have a lot of challenges. They are expected. We're all expected to be perfect to a degree, but the standards and the expectations placed upon an NFL referee is extremely high. It's extremely high. It's a ton of scrutiny. We're all under scrutiny, but they are expected because they're the face of the crew, right? So, when you see Tony Josselyn you don't see Tony Josselyn working a football game. You see Ron Torbert, who is my first referee the first couple of years in the NFL. So, but to answer your question, usually it is a natural progression from back judge to referee.
Now, and you mentioned this earlier, we are now seeing women officiating come into the NFL. I think Sarah Thomas, is that her name, who was the first one who worked a playoff game this year, right?
She worked the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl. Okay,
Yeah. So I've got a story for you about Sarah, Dan. So I was fortunate enough to work with Sarah my first 2 years in the NFL. And Sarah is, she's the real deal. I don't know much about the new official that they just hired. Her name is Maya Chaka. But I remember the first preseason game I worked with Sarah, there was a pass across the middle. And I remember there was some contact. And she came up to me and she said, hey, did you see that action on that skinny post? And I was like, excuse me? She's extremely good at what she does. She works extremely hard to do what she does. So in my family, they all know her. My daughters, they both love her. So, when I get asked a lot about the NFL, I get asked, there she is right there. There's Scott Edwards and Sarah, and I'm number 67. So, but she works extremely hard to do what she does. She said it was a massive challenge the first couple of years in her position, just because, when you break barriers, it's going to be a challenge, right?
Absolutely.
So some of the challenges were unfair, but how do you quiet those, the pessimists? You go out there, you do your job, you do it well, and eventually they will come on board. So, and Sarah, look, she just worked the Super Bowl. And you have guys, Dan, you have guys that have worked 15, 20 years, 30 years even, that have never worked a Super Bowl. So everything, the moons and the stars have to align to work a Super Bowl. You have to nearly be perfect. And with the level of scrutiny and the evaluation system now, it's all transparent. She had a phenomenal year and she was awarded for it. So, hats off to her.
Yep. And you got to work a playoff game this year, didn't you?
Yes, sir. I did. I worked the Indy Colts and Buffalo Bills. I worked that game. It was in January, Dan. It was mid-30s and sunny in Buffalo. So God was looking out for me that day. So, and then I was an alternate for the Rams and Packers game. And when you're an alternate, basically you're on the sideline. Somebody gets hurt, you go in. So I was an alternate for that game. But again, Green Bay, January, mid-30s.
Somebody's living right.
Yes.
All right, now, and you could go in at any position if you're the alternate, right?
Well, not necessarily. They have alternates for all of us, basically. There's 5 alternates And side judge, field judge, there's only one alternate. For back judge, there's one alternate. Umpire, one. Referee, one. And then down judge or line judge, there's one. So there's 5 alternates total.
And is that just for the playoff games? That's
Yes,
not for every game, right? Okay.
Yeah, because we had a game this year. It was in Denver, and one of the officials on our crew, he suffered a concussion. So we had to go to 6-man mechanics. So you don't have an alternate. So you have 7 officials on the field. One person goes down, a regular season game, you're working 6-man mechanics.
Yeah, well, the thing about the game that people sometimes forget is the NFL officials that work those games are so important because you guys touch the ball on every play. You know what, Dan? Nobody else on the field does.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So I was a little bit apprehensive at first to do this. I'm just going to be honest with you, to be involved with the spotlight, just because we as a group, as a collective group of officials, we like to maintain anonymity. We don't like to glorify the position. Most of the officials that I work with, if not all, they maintain a great deal of confidentiality in what they do, and to us it's just a job. To us, it's we go out there, we do our job, we jump on the plane, work the game, jump on the plane, come home. So, but it's really, and one of the reasons why I'm doing this, I think it's to pay homage to my fellow officials that, you know what, there's a lot that goes into this.
Yeah.
But to myself, to my family, it's kind of interesting. I'll tell you a story. So, the spotlight, the email correspondence that you send out to market this, if you will, I showed it to my son, Connor, and he's like, "Oh, that's kind of cool, Padre." He calls me Padre because I think if you look up in the Urban Dictionary, Padre is like a dad that's considered a cool dude. So, but anyway, he said, "Padre, that's really cool." And then he said, "Well, but why do they want to do that?" So I'm like, you know what? I don't know. But you know what? Not many people, and my wife, Dawn, she tells me this all the time. You know what? It's not you that they want to really know about. It's part of something much bigger. The NFL, people, it's a phenomenal system. It's a $15 billion revenue stream.
Yeah.
It's something that everybody loves. Well, not everybody. A lot of people love. It's something that people just want to be a part of it. And if I can share that with others, whether it be on a spotlight with Dan McBride or on a plane traveling home from somewhere, it's, hey, I think I have to do my due diligence and I have to be that resource.
Yeah, well, and obviously you caught our attention because you're an official in the NFL. But as I talked about you and got into and I hadn't seen you since you left school, really, I don't think. And so as I learned more about what you've done in the probation office and all the stuff, you've had a great career aside from the NFL. So certainly worth celebrating. And I don't know of any other EKU alum, to be honest, who has been an NFL official. We may have had one, but as far as I know, you're the only one I know of.
Wow, that's kind of neat. Yeah, I'm trying to go back into my data bank, and I don't know of anybody that's no officials that have gone to EKU and become NFL officials. No, but yeah, I think go ahead.
I was just going to say, I know several MLB umpires that have come through EKU, and we've still got a couple working in the major leagues today, and even some NBA officials. But you're the only NFL official, and certainly there are those, Carl Park and Doug Whitlock, and those who would know better than me. But you're the only one that I know of who made it all the way to the NFL as an official. So maybe somebody will correct us and it's watching. But as far as I know, you're the first.
Well, it's been a fantastic opportunity. It's been absolutely amazing. I would have never imagined that I would have made it to this position. But I've got a couple stories for you. So talking about just the significance of being an NFL official. I'll never forget my very first game. Ron Torbert, who was my referee, who I mentioned earlier, it was a Monday night football game, Rams versus Raiders. And I'll never forget, right before the very first snap, we have these, they're called O2Os. They're basically devices which we can communicate with each other on the field, communicate with New York. So before the very first snap, Ron Torbert, he got on the 020 and he said, Tony Josselyn. And I said, yes. He said, welcome to the National Football League. I was like, oh, it was just, it was a great memory. But I remember that first preseason there, I think it was the second or the third game. I remember it was New England against Carolina. And from my position, I'm looking across the line of scrimmage, and I see Tom Brady, make eye contact with Tom Brady. I look over on the sideline, I see Cam Newton, and I just think to myself, what am I doing here?
I mean, it's got to be surreal to be on like Monday Night Football. I mean, you're standing on the field on Monday Night Football with thousands and thousands of people watching and millions at home watching and cheering. I imagine there's got to be some adrenaline going at that point.
A lot of adrenaline, but I always remind myself, you know what? They're not there to watch me. They're there to watch the game. And I'm a very small faction of such a bigger stage. And it's really, to a degree, it's a show. I remember in the SEC, I used to work with an umpire that played in the NFL for a long time. And he said, Giles, look, it's a show. That's what, and they're not out there to watch officials. They're not out there to watch us throw our little yellow flags. They're out there to watch the game, to be a part of something bigger. And, you know, like I said, Dan, it's a surreal opportunity. Very, very appreciated.
It's funny because until you go to a live NFL game, you don't know how much truth is in that it's a show. Because when you're watching at home, you get the commercials. But when you go to an actual NFL game, you see all of the dead time in between putting the presentation together. I mean, the amount of time they're actually playing football isn't that great. There's a lot of dead time.
There's a ton of dead time. And as a back judge, that's one of my responsibilities is to time the TV timeouts. So there's 4 every quarter, 3 minutes, 20 seconds. I mean, that's a lot of time. And if you can, I mean, there's, like you said, there's a lot of downtime. We try to do things on the field that not necessarily expedites the game, but if there's a play on the sideline and it's, you know, we have a dead clock, and as soon as we can get that clock rolling without giving an advantage to either team, you know, we try to do that because we recognize that, you know what, there's a game on right after this. And again, this is a show. Let's try to make the game as efficient as possible. You know what games are really long? NCAA. I'm going to give you an example. Yeah. So on average, NFL games probably have between 150 to 165 plays. So with these, you know, no huddle offenses in the NCAA nowadays, you're getting up to 190, over 200 plays. And those games are just so long. They're just so long. But you know what? I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the pageantry behind the game or what, especially in the SEC. The SEC, they have the viewers, and those viewers, they hang on. So, Dan, I've been in stadiums where, honestly, where it feels like the stadiums are just, they're shaking. The ground is moving because there are so many fans, and it's so loud. It's just deafening. I know there's one story of a game at LSU when there was an interception. LSU eventually scored on this interception, and is it the seismograph that measures?
Yeah.
So it registered from the noise that was heard from the stadium.
That's incredible.
It's amazing.
But that's SEC football. You're right. It's a very unique thing. Okay, we've got some questions from some folks who are watching and very patiently waiting for you to answer. So I'm going to get to the questions. First up, we have a question from Tom, who wants to know, who was your greatest professional influence?
Greatest professional influence?
And I assume that's as it relates to officiating, I'm assuming.
Okay. You know what? I think Dr. Ben Oldham probably was my biggest influence. He was in the SEC for many, many years. Oh my gosh, that's Tom Mattingly. So to answer Tom's question, it would have to be Ben Oldham. So, and he knows the background behind Ben Oldham. So Ben Oldham was in the SEC for many, many years. He actually came to one of my high school games. And, so his son, John Oldham, was a United States probation officer at the time. He came out there to watch John work. So John and I were working together, and Ben said, hey, you know what, if you're ever interested in pursuing the SEC, give me a call. So when I called him up one day, and it was during the spring, and he said, hey, why don't you come on out to UK? They're having a scrimmage, bring your stuff, and if you want to officiate, have at it. So that's how you get your feet wet, is through networking, through connections. So, but I greatly appreciate Tom's question.
Next up, Lauren Raymer wants to know, what's your biggest on-field growing pain?
Oh my gosh. Ole Miss, Alabama. Several years ago, I made a bad call. Okay. So it was I'm not going to say it was not a game determining call. Well, yes, it was a game determining call, but thank the Lord for replay. Okay. It was an inline play, an Ole Miss DB. I remember the tight end for Alabama coming straight down. He was running a deep post, and I was at the end of the end line. I was at the end line, which is, in the end zone. It's the back line. Yeah. So I remember just DB went in front of the tight end, caught the ball, foot down. I thought he was out of bounds. I waved it out of bounds, and I was wrong. So in terms of a growing pain, it was painful. It was so painful. Granted, it was one call. We ended up getting it right because of replay. But, I don't like to be wrong. Nobody likes to be wrong. Yeah. But in that type of an atmosphere, to get that wrong. So what do? You find out why you were doing it wrong. Well, in the NFL, they have perfected many things. So Walt Anderson introduced us to something called Neuro Ophthalmology. Basically, when you're running, okay, your eyes are moving. So, and I have to believe that I was running on the end line to get in a better position. And I'm fairly certain that's probably why I missed it. So, but when you're stationary in the position to see the play, I think I just rushed to judgment. It's still painful. I still have nightmares about it, Dan. So that was a growing pain for me. But we're all human, right?
Yeah, well, obviously, and people forget that about officials sometimes. But you said, thankfully, we had replay, and that's one of the things that I've always wondered about, is how do the officials feel about replay? And so I assume it's something that you guys are good with.
I can tell you this. Had it not been for replay back in that game, I probably would not be sitting, because that was such a magnitude of a call that I missed. I wouldn't be in the spotlight right now, Dan. So I love replay. I know my fellow officials, we appreciate. Oh, there's Sam. She's saying she remembers that play. Yeah. So, and there's my mother-in-law, Kathy. Okay. So, but anyway, us as officials, we appreciate replay, especially when it's a win-win for the game.
Yeah.
It's a win-win, because then things happen so quickly. And honestly, your eyes, it's just so hard to pick up on some of the most minute details on the field. That's why there's replay. For instance, that last game, the Colts and the Bills playoff game, we had a huge play situation involving replay, and it took them forever to make a decision. When I say them, I mean New York, but it's because of all the different angles that were being processed. You couldn't get it right because of all the angles, and we're expected to make that call just like that.
Yeah. Split moment. Yeah. And ultimately the goal is to get the call right. And so, but you're right. Sometimes we can watch 12 different angles of a replay and still not have any idea what the call should be. And you guys are having to make it in that moment on the field, snap, boom, so I think most people understand.
You know what? One thing, I missed an inline play in the NFL once, and that was my first year. I remember one of the veteran officials came up to me after I missed the play, replay corrected it. He said, Tony, these guys are so good that if you have any doubts relevant to whether or not it's a catch, back of the end line, just go ahead and rule it a catch, because these guys are that good, Dan. These guys are just, they're some of the most athletic people in the world. And to watch them, to have the opportunity to watch them every weekend and to try to preserve some of the integrity of the game, I just love my position.
Next question comes from Kyle Reese. As someone who trains young intramural officials, what is the best advice you'd give to a young official?
So Kyle, that's a great question. And I was at a clinic 2 weeks ago, and I'll give you the same advice that I gave those gentlemen a couple weeks ago. So you have to know your rules, okay? You have to be the rules guy. You have to be the one who, when there is a penalty enforcement situation on the field and it's a pressure situation, they know that they could look to Kyle or whomever to have the correct penalty enforcement, okay? That's number one. Number two, you have to know your mechanics. Sometimes, I would profess to my old SEC coordinator, you know what, let's not just get tested on the rules. Let's get tested on the mechanics manual, because relevant to mechanics, you have to be in the right place at the right time to make the right call. To do so, first and foremost, you need to be in good shape, okay? So rules, mechanics, and then you just have to work hard and you have to make the sacrifices. You know what, like I said earlier, Dan, I've made a lot of sacrifices to get where I am, but not just me. I mean, my family they've sacrificed a lot as well. So it's important to get your family on board. And it's something that if you want to go for it, go all out, Kyle. And you just have to have family support, and you have to be willing to work hard and make sacrifices. It's just like anything else. You work hard, the harder you work, the more opportunities and options you're going to have.
Next question comes from Gracie Crossweight, and she wants to know, what's been your favorite game that you have officiated?
That's a great question, Grace. So, which, by the way, Gracie Crossweight is the daughter of Daryl Crossweight, who got me involved with officiating. So I think my most favorite game, honestly, other than the Rams Raiders Monday night, because that's just, I could detail every single play of that game. I had my very first bowl assignment, the Armed Forces Bowl, when I was in the Sun Belt Conference. That was a pretty special game. And I think most officials, they'll tell you it wasn't the game, but what's the atmosphere that surrounded the game? I've worked some Iron Bowls between Alabama, and Auburn. Those were pretty fantastic. But in terms of the best game, I don't really have a best game per se, but I mean, the best experience was the Armed Forces Bowl, which is my first bowl assignment in the NCAA.
You mentioned a few minutes ago that your family has made a lot of sacrifices. So this next question is probably going to be even harder for you. Katie wants to know, who is your favorite child? And I know Sam's watching, so you're going to be in trouble here no matter what.
I would expect that from Katie Josselyn. Oh, look, there's my family. Okay, so far left, there's little Sydney Shepard. She's at EKU right now, and next to her is Katie. Okay, that's okay. She just answered that question. Sam, who graduated in 2019, obviously, and then there's my sister-in-law, Tara Shepard, Brad Shepard, and then of course that's me. That's the tall guy there, and then my wife Dawn, and then there's Daryl Crossweight, far right.
Wow,
so
that's the whole clan. All EKU people right there, baby.
Absolutely, there's the clan.
Okay, we do have another question. Steve-O wants to know, what sport would you love to officiate aside from football, and which one would you rather not officiate?
So Steve-O Greenwell. So I would say, aside from football, I think basketball would be my second pursuit. I've actually considered it in the past, and I told my wife that I was going to consider it. I was considering it last year. I told Dawn that, and she gave me this look.
I can imagine.
But I would imagine basketball. It's tougher to climb that ladder, so to speak. But I love basketball. I love to play it. I love to play it with my son Connor. I think the one sport that I probably would not relish officiating. I would think that, I could be wrong, but I would think maybe volleyball. I don't know, because there's not much movement. I would imagine your eyes are just exhausted after some matches. So
I think being a line judge in volleyball is one of the harder things. And of course, they have cameras on the lines now too. But back in the old days, having to make that, that split second decision, was that ball in, was it out? And
yeah.
you have to put the flag up. That's not a very easy sport to officiate. I did want to ask you about this past season because of the pandemic. Obviously, it was a very unique season and a lot of strange circumstances. Kind of how was it officiating? And I'm sure there were a lot of extra protocols and stuff. It just had to be a long season because of all of that.
You know what, Dan? It was a long season, and the extra protocols, first and foremost, for the NFL to actually put a season on last year was incredible. All the work, the behind the scenes details, the work into the minutia of things, it was overwhelming. But it was not to have stadiums without fans. That's just not natural.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so awkward. But as soon as we got on site to the stadium, they would give us these little tracking devices, and you would have to wear it until you flew back home. For anybody that was determined to be positive, to test positive for COVID, they would take those tracking devices and they would say, okay, this official number 2, he was exposed to official number 4 by so many different hours.
Wow.
The science that went into it, which I know the NFL worked so hard, and Dr. Sills, who is the NFL's primary doctor, just incredible, so smart. But they determined that the positivity rate was less than 8% across the NFL, which, you know what, that's a really big deal. And I'll never forget when I remember Denver had a game where all of their quarterbacks had tested positive.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I thought to myself, if the NFL is going to continue with a game where all of your major pivotal players, all the quarterbacks for one team all tested positive, they're going to go ahead and continue with this game, we're getting through the season. Because there was some speculation in the very beginning, season's going to be canceled. A lot of it, some people said it was political. Some people said, you know what, whatever, I'm not going to get into that. But they put it together. They listened to the experts. They did the necessary protocols. So, Dan, when I would arrive on site to the hotel, I would check in and we would be quarantined. Okay. I was not allowed to bring anybody with me. I was not allowed to basically open my door to anybody else. We had to have food delivered to our rooms. All of our meetings were done via Zoom. That's how we got the season underway, and that's how we made it work. So it was a challenge. So Sam asked, how many COVID tests did you take? By the end of the season, Dan, I was taking 5 COVID tests a week.
That's insane.
It was insane. But you know what? They did what they had to do to get the season underway.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I did want to ask you too, you work with the same crew every week, right? You guys are a crew. But they try to make it where you guys don't work the same team twice in a year, or how does that work? I know they try to keep it from where you're not working New England 3 or 4 times in a year, right?
They do, correct. Yeah, and you know what? So, and they will go as far as, if let's say that Tony Josselyn had a bad call against Kansas City. Well, let's say one of the coaches didn't appreciate that call. Tony Josselyn probably would not return to Kansas City for the remainder of the year. So they know, that's what they do. That's their jobs. Our coordinator, Walt Anderson, that's what he does. He is on top of it. So he knows every single call that's made in every single game, and his system of evaluation, then so we're graded after every game. Okay. And it's usually there's a set of different evaluators, but before the grade, the overall grade and evaluation is finalized, Walt Anderson looks at every single game. The man does not sleep I don't see how he does it. It's just,
that's all he does is watch football. And
that's all he does. But in terms of consistency, and an approach to consistency. He has got a phenomenal system, and I'm really appreciative of his system because, I've been part of systems in the past where the coordinators may have, they may have made postseason assignments based upon other factors other than evaluation.
Yeah.
So Walt Anderson will just, if you have not officiated a game very well, or if you need to improve in various sections, you'll get a phone call and he will tell you. He doesn't want to be your friend, but he's a man he's just a very professional man. And that's how he runs his ship. And I greatly appreciate it.
You're still around 3 years into it. So so far you must be making people happy and doing the right things.
So far, so good.
I'm looking at the clock, Tony, and I think we're kind of running out of time here. But it's been a lot of fun, and it's been great. And I didn't get to even talk to you as much about your job as a probation officer, which I know you love, and it's the education you got at EKU is what led you to that job. And so maybe at some point we can have you back and we can talk a little bit more about the other job of Tony Josselyn.
Hey, when we do that segue for the Colonel's Kitchen, call me up. I'll be there, Dan.
Absolutely. Sounds great. Tony, thanks so much for being with us tonight, and enjoy the off season, get some rest, and we look forward to seeing you back on the field next fall.
Thank you so much, Dan. And thank you so much for what you do for alumni development. You're doing a great job, so keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. Tony Josselyn, our guest tonight. You've seen him on TV in the zebra stripes, and he's got the zebra right there behind him. He is an NFL official, and we appreciate Tony for being here tonight. We appreciate you for tuning in and watching us here on the Alumni Spotlight. Again, want to remind you of some upcoming things. Next Wednesday, it's the Colonel's Kitchen. It will be back 8 o'clock next Wednesday night, a special St. Patrick's Day edition, and it will be streaming right here live again on Facebook Live and on YouTube. You can catch it both places. Then on the 23rd, 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be back with our next Alumni Spotlight series at 7 o'clock on the 23rd. And then coming up later this month, on March 29th, it is another edition of Alumni Trivia. We also have a special feature coming up in April that we'll be telling you more about later this month. We can't get together at Keeneland like we normally do as an alumni association. They are very limited in the number of folks that they allow, but we are going to have our own At the Races Day, and we're going to do it virtually, and you'll have more details about that coming up soon. That date, I believe, is April 8th when we will do At the Races with EKU. We can't be at Keeneland, but we're going to do the next best thing. We're going to come together and do it virtually online. So more details on all those things coming up. Again, my thanks to the folks back behind the scenes, Alex Hanneman, Steve Greenwell, making everything happen, pushing all the right buttons, and making this show smooth as it can be. And that'll wrap things up for us tonight. I'm Dan McBride for EKU Alumni Engagement. We thank you for watching.